The Zuni bowl is a rainwater harvesting tool that we're going to be utilizing on our property. So I want to show the simple design and where we're implementing these. What's going on, everyone? I'm Brandon, and welcome to the Greening the Desert project. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We're in the middle of our Gabion Wallapini project here on our desert permaculture homestead. On the last video, we had actually finished up on the rammed earth wall at the level that it needed to be for the next stage of development here, which is gathering and stacking more rocks in the Gabion baskets. So we're actually out on our southwest end of our property. We're at a very bare area where we're actually going to utilize the rocks not only for building up the Gabion baskets, but we're also going to use the rocks for building up some Zuni bowls. So the Zuni bowl was originally invented by the Zuni people. So the Native Americans came up with this idea long time ago. So this isn't anything new, but it was actually further promoted by a man named Bill Mollison. No. His name was Bill Zedek. There's so many Bills around. Bill Zedek is the guy who did a lot of work in Arizona and a lot of work in the wash areas and building up the banks, as well as allowing the water to be able to be slowed and spread out on the landscape, furthering the promotion of vegetation and essentially greening the desert. And this concept works for our sake and for our landscape because we have a whole lot of rocks here. We've got more rocks than I can count on my fingers. So we're going to start with a Zuni bowl right here in this area, and this is an area that we know has been constantly flooded out, and that's why we've built the rock check dams that we have here to help slow and soak the water more. But we actually can take this space around right here and we can create a Zuni bowl right in this spot because our driving path is right above here. So we actually can at least dig something here to further soak and store more water in our landscape. All right, so we've got our handmade A-frame here, and we're gonna use the A-frame to kind of find our level point, just to get a gauge at least. But essentially we're gonna take the A-frame and just use it like a giant compass so that we get a nice clean circle that we can draw out in the sand here for our Zuni bowl. And I'm pretty much gonna start the circle in front of the rocks here so that when the bowl overfills, it's gonna still have to sift through the rock check dam here. And then we actually have further bowls that we're gonna do down the way here. So this is a little bit of a big circle, I'll admit here, but that's the nice thing about our little giant compass tool. We'll just take the level off of it and then we'll just shrink it down. So I can close it a little bit, but we'll just shrink it down and just make a smaller circle. All right, cool. Now that we've got our circle drawn out, it's a nice medium-sized circle. So now I'll be able to just start chipping away at this. And honestly, for everyone's unique situation, I mean, that's the nice part about these bowls is that you can make them really deep or you can make them really shallow. You can make these really wide or you can make them really skinny. But we can do, more oval shapes. We can do squares as long as we have a pit for the water to drop into so that it's capturing sediment, soaking water, and slowing a lot of the water down. That is the main concept of a Zuni bowl, basically. Oh, and I forgot to say, I think with the material that we excavate out of the little bowl here, we're gonna end up just kind of helping to build up our rock check dam here. And then we'll use some of it to help fill in the gaps in the rocks itself on the check dam here and kind of just build up this whole kind of berm here that's on contour so that we're capturing water all in this area, helping to soak and just grow more vegetation in this area. And then any of the rocks that we find in it, then we can use for the bowl. Got a nice patch of grass that's in our circle, so we'll kind of just leave the grass as it is. We'll just kind of keep this as a nice little bump so that we get continued grass growth, and then the bowl will kind of help propagate and promote more of the growth too. All right, so I just wanted to stop and dig for a second because right here we actually had flooding before. So with the rock check dam, We actually were slowing and stopping water. The last storm we had was probably about a week ago. And actually right here, you can kind of see here that we still have moist soil. We have stuff that's still clumped together. So down below, we still got some good moisture. And the last rainstorm we had was probably about a week ago, which is super cool, meaning I think we soaked a whole lot of water in this spot. But that's even the cooler thing, that this is such a bare area and we're still retaining moisture even after a week later here. Now that we've gotten our hole dug, this was probably the most strenuous part of building these Zuni bowls, but now we can actually start gathering up our rocks, and we'll basically just be doing one layer of rocks to cover the whole bowl, and we'll go from there. So now we've got our Zuni bowl finished, and you can kind of see that I used a variety of different sizes of rocks. For general purposes, I mean, it really doesn't matter what size of rocks you use. I think as long as you're not really using like small little gravel, or maybe at least softball size rocks is probably the preferred method, I think. And I usually try to do bigger rocks on the bottom of the bowl and then kind of start spreading out with the smaller rocks. But then also something I didn't mention was that we kind of did dig out a little bit in front of the bowl, so the water that is coming this way, we are essentially leading that water more so into the bowl than having the water really just run around it. But eventually, once this bowl actually fills up, then the water will spread out a lot farther, and that's a big goal that we have here. But we want to sink the water down, but also spread the water out on as big of a surface area as we can, so that we have that much area being soaked and water being absorbed into the ground and into the soil. And that's another thing with the Zuni bowl itself, is that with the rocks being inside of the bowl, now we're actually going to be stopping and slowing sediment along with the water capturing. But for our sake, we have multiple earthworks along here that are going to be slowing and stopping water and allowing it to soak, and therefore slowing and stopping a lot more of the sediment that does come down the way. So we're gonna be holding more of our topsoil here, and that's the benefit of the Zuni bowl with capturing the sediment. Once it fills up, we'll be able to scoop that out and clean it, but we'll use that nice topsoil and sediment mix to be able to lay on our garden beds and our swales and a lot of the other earthworks for growing plants. Super nice. We got one Zuni bowl done, so we've got multiple more to do. I've got to still collect more rocks for the gabion wallopini, and hopefully in the next couple days we'll be getting some storms so that we actually can see how that Zuni bowl works. So part of our goal on our desert permaculture homestead here is capturing, storing, and soaking as much of the rainwater as we can on our property. So the Zuni bowl, along with the other earthworks that we've done around our property, have already contributed to the rainwater actually soaking into our landscape. So we're already off to a really good start. But in reality, we've really only covered maybe a couple acres of our 10-acre property with earthworks. So we still have a lot of earthworks to complete. So that's been part of the design plan of our landscape, as well as the gabion wallopini, is when we're needing materials for the gabion wallopini, we're gathering the materials out on our landscape. But as we're gathering the materials we need for the build, we're also going to these certain areas around on our property that need help, that need a little bit of earthworks on them in order for more water to be slowed and soaked in the area. And so the areas that we've been choosing have been very bare areas that need more grass, need more diversity, need a lot of help. So that's kind of our main focus when we're looking at the materials we need and gathering those materials. carrying out with the design plan on the earthworks that we'll need for that certain area. And that's actually what's really cool so far, because we're probably towards the end of the monsoon season here. And so we've been actually able to experience at least a little bit of the weather patterns and the sudden downfall of rain coming on our property and landscape. Granted, I don't think it's really been that great of a monsoon season, especially hearing from other people. But we've been able to see a whole lot of action from the earthworks that we've already kind of carved out and outlined in a lot of these places to give us actually ideas on the improvements that we need to make around here, but also giving us a chance to see where we need to put more effort in our earthworks in slowing and soaking more of the water. And I've been able to look back on the videos from the past rainstorms now, and I've been able to actually see more so our problem areas where we're getting a lot more water flow compared to other areas. So it could be that water is soaking better in some areas and water just isn't soaking the best in certain areas. So we've actually come to an area that I've been able to look at a few times now and see how much water actually gathers up. And we've created already a little rock check dam in a couple of these places here where the water was filling up in this certain spot. But now we're actually going to upgrade the area with some better earthworks that will actually slow and soak the water more efficiently and more effectively. But we'll also combine that with our check dams. So we'll see with this area that we need a bit more help. So we need to stack more rocks, and that's where the Zuni bowl is going to come in. I do want to focus in because there is the abundance of rocks all around. So the rocks we need for the build, and then we'll be able to use some of the rocks for the Zuni bowl itself. And I actually have another take on the Zuni bowl. As opposed to using the rocks, we'll actually end up using the sticks. So I'll kind of show you how we're putting this all together.